What happens when destiny crowns you a prodigy, only to strip you down in front of the world? When Ousmane Dembélé pulled up clutching his hamstring on that cursed Barcelona debut, a golden dream twisted into a nightmare. The whispers turned venomous. They sneered, they jeered, they branded him Dembulance. A fragile body mocked as wasted millions. For most, that collapse was the death of a career. But what if it was not death at all? What if it was rebirth? What if Ousmane's agony was the spark of something immortal, where ridicule was hammered into rhythm and every wound carved another verse of poetry? This is the tale of Ousmane Dembélé, the boy from Normandy who dragged himself from ridicule to redemption and rose, scarred yet unbroken, to clutch the Ballon d'Or. Ousmane Dembélé's journey begins far from the bright lights of Barcelona or Paris, in the quiet town of Vernon, Normandy. His childhood was marked not by fame or privilege, but by a ball at his feet. A ball that seemed to obey him like few others. By the time he joined Rennes Academy at just 13, whispers had already begun. This kid was different. His coaches described him in ways that sounded almost mythical. One said it was as if he had two hands instead of feet. To them, he wasn't just a player. He was an artist in the making. And when he made his Ligue 1 debut, the prophecy seemed true. Within 40 minutes, he had scored. By the end of the season, he had recorded 12 goals and 5 assists, numbers that turned heads across Europe. Borussia Dortmund took the gamble first, investing 15 million euros in the teenager in 2016. What happened next was the stuff of instant legend. In Germany, Dembélé wasn't just good, he was electric.
Fly me out to Paris, bad bitch. I just want the money I can manage. Bust me down, I want a ring with the carrots.
He scored 6 goals, provided 13 assists, and was crowned Rookie of the Season. He didn't just adapt, he thrived, dismantling defences with the same unpredictability that made him a nightmare to mark. In the DFB Pokal semi-final, he ripped through Bayern Munich with fearless dribbling, and in the final, he scored the decisive goal to win Dortmund the trophy. In that season, journalists wrote that his potential seemed limitless. After that, the world was watching, and Barcelona was ready to act. When Neymar left for PSG in 2017, Barca turned to Dembélé as the heir to the famous number 11 shirt. The Catalan giants paid a staggering 105 million euros up front, with bonuses potentially raising the figure to 135 million euros, making him the second most expensive player in football history at just 20 years old. And for Dembélé, it was more than a move. It was a dream. "I always wanted to play for Barca since I was a kid," he admitted. He had the smile of someone who thought destiny had finally aligned. But fate can be cruel. In just his first few weeks, disaster struck. A hamstring tear in his debut campaign left him sidelined for 4 months. It was supposed to be a minor detour. Instead, it was the first page of a tragic chapter. Injury after injury followed. Thigh problems, recurring hamstring tears, a knee blow at Euro 2020, and endless weeks in rehabilitation. Each return carried hope, and each relapse crushed it. Even so, there were flashes of brilliance. In 2019, he struck a thunderbolt against Tottenham Hotspur in the Champions League, a goal so beautiful it was named Goal of the Week. But the moments were fleeting. His reputation became less about what he could do and more about what he couldn't. Stay fit. Fans began to mock him, calling him Dembulance. Social media feasted on his misfortune. At trophy parades, even his own teammates laughed at his fragility, captured in viral images that seemed to cement his role as a punchline. Ernesto Valverde, his coach at the time, didn't mince words either. After one poor decision that led to yet another injury, he remarked, "An experienced player wouldn't make the move Dembélé made." For many, that was the epitaph of his career. Here was a man who could have been great, but instead became the embodiment of wasted talent. Beneath the ridicule, something was brewing. In silence, he prepared. Dembélé never stopped working, never stopped believing, and most importantly, never stopped loving the ball. His style of play remained intoxicating. Two-footed dribbling, the ability to cut in on either side, the unpredictability that mirrored jazz music more than structured football. A Rennes coach once described how he always carried the ball like a comfort blanket, as if it were an extension of himself. He was chaos and elegance combined. Some believed in him, even when the world didn't. Xavi, long before he became Barcelona's manager, once said, "Dembélé can be the best in the world in his position." Luis Enrique later echoed this sentiment. "I keep insisting, Dembélé is the most influential player in the world." These were not empty words. They were the seeds of a prophecy that for years seemed impossible to imagine. By 2023, the Barcelona chapter had run its course. Injuries, inconsistency, and frustration defined his years in Catalonia. So he left, joining Paris Saint-Germain for just £43.5 million, a fraction of his Barcelona price tag. He inherited Neymar's number 10 shirt, a symbolic gesture that came with weight. To many, it looked like PSG had signed yet another cast-off, another luxury player who would fade into the shadows. Few could have predicted that this move would become the turning point of his entire career. The first season in Paris brought sparks. He scored in the Coupe de France final, delivered assists, and began to remind people of his Dortmund days. But it was the 2024-25 campaign when everything changed. Luis Enrique, who Dembélé would later call like a father, moved him into a more central role. No longer just a winger, he became the heartbeat of the team, a false nine who not only created but finished. His season became one of the most remarkable renaissances in modern football. 35 goals, 16 assists, and most importantly, leadership. The Champions League, the holy grail for PSG, finally came home. Dembélé scored and assisted throughout the campaign, tormenting Arsenal in the semi-finals, and in the final against Inter Milan in Munich, he provided 2 assists in a 5-0 rout. By spring, PSG had achieved the treble. Ligue 1, Coupe de France, and their first ever Champions League title. Dembélé wasn't just part of the story, he was the story. And so, on September the 22nd, 2025, he walked onto the stage at the Châtelet Theatre in Paris and received football's ultimate prize, the Ballon d'Or. He became only the 6th Frenchman to ever win it, joining legends like Copa, Platini, Zidane, and Benzema. The trophy was handed to him by none other than Ronaldinho, a fitting circle of history. Dembélé, overwhelmed with emotion, said through tears, "What just happened to me is incredible. It's been an amazing season with PSG. I'm a little nervous, it's not easy." He thanked his teammates and Enrique, whom he described as family. But even in triumph, controversy swirled. Barcelona's teenage sensation Lamine Yamal finished second, leading to outrage in Spain. Yamal's father called the result the biggest moral damage done to a human being, insisting his son was the true best in the world. Spanish pundits speculated about age discrimination, and social media debates raged. In Paris, PSG fans responded with chants, booing Yamal's name at matches. Yet for Dembélé, the overwhelming narrative was one of redemption. A French headline captured it perfectly. From ridicule at Barcelona to Ballon d'Or glory. How did it all change? Well, the answer lies not just in tactics or roles, but in life itself. In 2021, he quietly married his partner, Rima, in Morocco, a surprise even to his teammates, who didn't know he had a partner at all. Soon after, he became a father. Those who know him say that this was the true transformation. Marriage and fatherhood grounded him. He began taking nutrition seriously, worked with physiotherapists at home, and invested in preventative treatments. The boy who once stayed up all night gaming had matured into a man who understood responsibility. He was no longer just playing for himself. He was playing for his family. Luis Enrique pushed him further. Without Kylian Mbappé, who left PSG for Real Madrid, Enrique told Dembélé, "We now want goals from you. We want you to be egotistical." The coaching staff drilled into him a single mantra: Ballon d'Or, Ballon d'Or, Ballon d'Or. And Dembélé listened. He became more selfish in front of goal, converting chances he once passed up, and transformed his artistry into efficiency. He wasn't just a dribbler anymore. He was a finisher, a leader, a talisman. At the end of that historic season, the numbers told their own poetry. 35 goals, 16 assists, a treble, and finally, the Ballon d'Or. For a player once mocked as fragile, who had spent 784 days sidelined with injuries at Barcelona, the sight of him lifting football's greatest individual prize in his home country was more than a victory. It was vindication. But perhaps the greatest irony is that Dembélé didn't just fulfill the prophecy of greatness. He transcended it. For years, everyone thought PSG's dream of Champions League glory, and by extension, the world's best player, would be Mbappé. They were right about the club. But it wasn't Mbappé. It was Dembélé. The story of Ousmane Dembélé is not just about goals or trophies. It is about resilience, about how ridicule can become motivation, how fragility can lead to strength, and how pain can turn into poetry. His career reads like a myth. The prodigy from Normandy, the shooting star in Dortmund, the broken dream in Barcelona, the cruel years as Dembélé, and finally, the rebirth in Paris. Today, his resume is staggering. 3 La Liga titles, a World Cup medal with France in 2018, a historic treble with PSG, and now a Ballon d'Or. But his legacy is more than silverware. It is the reminder that football, like life, is not a straight line. It is chaos, suffering, joy, and beauty, all interwoven into 90 minutes. They mocked his fragility. They doubted his body. They questioned his will. But Ousmane Dembélé turned pain into poetry.